let's start without conveyor belts. We don't have anything here, I think. An idea might be to not just completely remove these, but unhook them, so that you have these available if you want to debug again later. It will look a little bit more messy, of course, so it's up to you if you want to delete them or not, but we want to at least clean it up so that we don't have all of these messages printing all the time. And we remove that one. Let's see here. That's the interact with event. Compile and save. First person character. We will remove the prints of the resources the player has. The machine has that one removed as well. Let's see if we have any messages going around still. We have the unpause message in the machine. No, in the should be in the pickup spawner, right? Right. So we'll remove those. We'll start again. Looks good. Then we have some objects in the world here still from before. We want to remove those as well. Those were just for debugging earlier. And I would say we're more or less done now. We could add one small thing to make some player feedback available, because the player drops off the items in the correct area and it gets some time, but it's not very apparent what that time is or how much or anything, or that it's even happening if you're not paying attention. So we could be working a little bit on our HUD to make sure that it is a little bit more clear. And we could do that by adding a text, like so. And we can, let's see, if this one is anchored middle, we probably want to anchor this one middle as well, because we want to have it in relationship with this one. We will say that this is the time gained text. Make sure to click in the is variable over here. Then we go over here, and then we have an event here for when the timer is updated. However, it's only sending the new time remaining in here, and we want to know what amount of time has it been increased with. So we need to go and find where this is being sent from, which is our game state here. So it's calling time updated, and we change the time updated interface a little bit, and we say time added. Then we send in a float, and let's see here, the time change is the time that we want to put in there. We'll clean it up a little bit, like so. Oh, that's not even. We need to fix it so it's even. There we go. And then we go back to our HUD, and we see that time added has been added here. So in addition to setting this, we also want to set our variable, which is called, let's do this, we unshow the inherited variable, so we just see ours for ease of use. So time gained text is the one we want to use, and we want to set text to, that's not what's supposed to happen. Set text, there we go, under widget. And the text we want to set is the amount of time that has been added. So we can do this. We can do a format text, so we can make it pretty. And then we can do a plus sign to show that it has been increased, and then we can do square brackets and set time added, and then end squiggly brackets, and then we hook in that one over there. However, we want to make sure this one is being called every time it is decreased also, and we just want to show when it's actually being increased. So we want to have a check for this to make sure that it's a positive value for us to show. And clean this one up a little bit as well while we're at it. So if this one, come on, is greater than 0, then we want to show this. So this should be fairly easy to test. Let's see, it doesn't like that. Time has been updated. We have to refresh this node. It wants to know the time added. And this is in the beginning, so this doesn't need to be anything. That should be fine. Let's see what happens. So it says text block, and then whenever we pick something up and put it in the right spot, we should get some time added. And we need an engine because the other one is too far away to drop off. So we'll put the engine over here, and we see +5 appears over there. So now we just need to clean this up a little bit so it looks prettier, right? So if time is decreased, there we go, our HUD. So we might want to first of all change the text to green, so, or maybe blue, because I think, yeah, the color over there is blue. So this should be nice, and then we'll start off as hidden. Probably is a good idea. Visibility, hidden, so it starts off as hidden, and then when it is increased, we want to set it to visibility okay, this became a little bit messy, like so. And now we want to set it to visible so that we actually see the number, and after that we want to unhide it again, or hide it again rather. Now we're gonna do something I will normally not promote, but it's gonna make it easier for us to finish, so for this instance we will use it, but I will warn you with this. There's something called a delay node, and this is available only in events, not in functions. And we can say something like 3 seconds, 3 seconds. And after that we can say set visibility to hidden. You do not want to use delays normally. It's sort of like tick. You should never be using a delay. If you're using a delay, you're most likely doing something wrong. However, for us, since I don't want this to keep going for far too long, this will do for us now. So we will just check and see if we can finish this by having some engines spawned, and then we'll pick it up and place it over here. Get +5, and after 3 seconds it should hopefully go away. There you go. So that should be it. We could, if you wanted to, if you've gotten this far, you can always add more layers on it. Like for example, I might have mentioned earlier, we have this electric box before. We could also tie this into the machine, making sure that it needs to have electricity from here for this machine to work, as well as a resource in addition to the ones that we actually pick up. That way you have more dimensions for the player to do things. Makes it a little bit more hectic. It needs to pick up the resources, it needs to go to the electric box and poke on that a little bit, and it needs to pick up the items here and place them in the drop-off areas and such things. Now the main part is probably just gonna be tuning, setting your timers to be something that makes sense, setting the amount of resources that you decrease to something sensible, so that you have something that's both challenging but not too easy. Since we have built everything as blueprints, you can just add conveyor belts, for example. So this conveyor belt here, we could just add this one over here, rotate it like so, and then move it and place it over here, and then when something gets spawned, it will go along this like long track of conveyor belts that you have, and you can build like a complex system of conveyor belts if that's something you wanted to do instead. I think we have done pretty much enough for now. This is a little bit more advanced than I had intended, but hopefully you managed to follow the whole way through and managed to end up with something similar to this. And hopefully you managed to get all the system working so that you find it fun. But again, a lot of making games is about tweaking, making sure that the variables are set to something proper to make it actually challenging and fun and not just a crazy roller coaster basically. Anyway, that's all for now. I immediately changed my mind. There is some polishing that we should be doing actually. There's still too little communication being done to the player about what is happening and going on. So for example, we don't know how many materials or resources the player is walking around with. We don't see on the HUD what the progress bar on the top is here. There's nothing descriptive about this at all. We don't know how many resources are left in the machines. We should probably address all of these things and polish things a little bit so the communication to the player is a little bit more clear. We'll start off with the HUD. Let's add a simple text, and then we will anchor it to the middle top, and we will reset its position along X and align it 0.5 like we talked about earlier. We'll set the text to time remaining and size to content, and let's make this blue as well, so there's sort of a connection between the progress bar and the text. It's implicitly linking them together. So that's one thing to make that a little bit more clear. The next thing is that we should have some kind of information about the resources. So let's do something like this. We'll drag in two texts, and we will call the first one metal resource on player, and we'll make it a variable. We will hook it to the center left side. We'll do something similar to this one. So we'll give in a text message here that represents sort of what it would look like. Metal colon. Let's change my keyboard so I can write a colon. 14. So that's sort of what that would be looking like, right? Then we'll do something like bolts colon 9. We'll place these a little bit closer to each other, maybe something like that. And we will make the first one we called metal resource of player. This one we'll call bolt resource on player. Make this a variable as well. And then we will hook up to this we're gonna need some event dispatchers, I think is the best way to handle this. So when our first person character gets resources in form of metal or bolts, we will create dispatches for this. So amount of metal updated, and we'll make another one called amount of bolts updated, and we'll give this one in parameter of the new value, which is going to be a float, and we'll call this new metal amount. Do something similar for bolts. Float new bolt amount. There we go. And since we already have this code available here where we're actually updating and changing the resources, this is a good place to have that information. So we will drag this debug data away, and then we'll just call metal updated, And our resource of metal is going to be the new value I have there. And then we'll do call amount bolt updated. There we go. So we're all set in here. So we're letting everyone know that we're who is interested that these have been updated, right? So we'll go back to our HUD, and our HUD is gonna be adding a event dispatcher on begin play. And let's see here. We have the game state there. Okay. So let's get player pawn and cast it to first person character. We might want to have a bit more space available to us here, so I'm going to be moving this up a little bit. I'm going to be moving this down a little bit. There we go. So first person character. So we will bind metal, and we will also bind bolts. Okay, so we create an event over here. And we call this metal updated. Metal amount updated maybe. And we can set this to, let's see here, metal resource on player. Set the text. Format the text. This will be metal colon and then the amount, so metal amount. Curly brackets around that, so we get an actual input created for it, just like before. So there we go. So now we have created the stuff for the metal. Now we need to do the same for the bolt. Bolt amount updated. Get one of these. Get one of these. Like so. And we get the format text again. That's that where we wanted it. Okay, let's copy that again so we don't have to redo everything. Instead of metal, it's gonna say bolt, of course. And we should rename this one so it's actually accurate to bolt amount. And then we hook that up. Like so. So now we should be getting that one updated. However, we are not currently. We go and set these to 0 since we start with 0. And let's see if this works. So we have the text showing up on our HUD. Pick up some metal. Seems fine. We wait a little bit for the bolts to spawn. those up and check that. That did not work. That is why we debug things or test things, to find these errors. So yeah, of course it doesn't. We are updating the metal resource on player instead of the bolt resource on player. There we go. So that should be that. In addition to that, we also want to somehow show that what kind of amount of resources the machine has. So let's find the machine, and for the machine maybe we should do something along the lines of a text render, I guess, is one way to do it. And we can say metal amount and drag it up a bit, and then say metal amount 0 and align it to center, and then we can duplicate that, call it bolt amount, and we drag that one up a bit and we change the text, bolt amount. And let's see, we have some events when it comes to the machine, I believe, which will be keeping it updated. So we're interacted with, that's the actual only point where the... No, that's not the only point. We actually have when we... Both when we decrease our resources over here, and also when we're interacting with the machine is when this could happen. So let's make a custom event, call it update resources texts, and whenever this is called, what we will do is we will drag our metal amount set text, and just like before we will format it. So, and we'll type metal amount colon squiggly brackets and metal amount and squiggly brackets. Then we'll use our amount of metal as our input here, and then we get the bolt amount one, and we set text. Copy this. Oh, we don't want to set font. No, I took the wrong one. Set text. There we go. Then instead of metal amount, we wanted to say bolt amount, and we wanted to say bolt amount in here as well. There we go. So now we have a function or an event that will be able to update this whenever we need it to. So the reasons or the times when we want to update it would be at this point when we have possibly changed from an interaction, and also when we have reduced the amount by just the machine working, right? So let's see what that looks like. So we have a metal amount up there, it's saying 4, 3, 2, 1, and it's counting down. However, it doesn't look super awesome because it's currently turned away from the player. So we could do this in a number of ways. We could, for example, we could have the text automatically turned towards the player, or we could have text rotating. Either way is really fine. Let us do the rotating text, see what that looks like. So begin play. Make a timeline like earlier, and we'll make it so sure in 5 seconds it can do a full rotation. Add 2 keys here. We change the naming here to rotation percentage. Change the first keyframe to 0, 0. Second keyframe, since it's 5 seconds long, it should be 5, 1. That's looking okay. And then we need to multiply the percentage with a, not pi, but a float. And this should be text rotation in degrees. We make a float and we make it 360, which is a full rotation. We use that in here. And then we say on each update we want to rotate set relative rotation. We can get another one of those and get it hooked up to the bolt amount. So these ones will be rotating along with each other then. Then we split the structs here, and then we want it to, like normally, rotate around the Z axis. Like so. Let's see what that looks like. I've got this stuck in the machine. I should probably get rid of this machine that I moved here. Or move the spawn possibly. Anyway, so yeah, now we see it's spinning around. It didn't loop, that is one issue that we need to fix. So we go into the timeline and we click on loop. Then it felt like it was possibly spinning a little bit fast. So let's try that again and see what it looks like. I guess it's okay. Anyway, yes, so now we have some feedback to the player at least that they have their resources. Maybe we should actually type that out as well to be very clear to the player. So we say something like resources on hand, maybe a colon, something like that. Then we size the content, anchor to the left, something like that. And we should probably be a little bit more 80 and X for all of these so they are aligned, because these small things makes a difference. So they're all 80 now. So now we can see our resources on hand there. We see our time remaining. We see some time going up if we deliver something. It would be good possibly to continue and polish and to make communication to the player even more transparent, maybe showing since we made the game, we know what you're supposed to be doing, but the player might not know that it's supposed to pick up these resources, it might not know that it's supposed to pick up the engines and where to drop them off and everything like that. We have started to make some kind of indication with it, with our icons and things like that. But it could be good to be more clear in the communication. But I think this is a good start. We're communicating a lot better, at least, to the player, which is important because the player shouldn't be feeling like they are lost and don't understand what the point is. So feel free to take some creative liberty here and enhance the user interface and feedback to the player even further. And yeah, I hope you found this series educational. If you liked the video, leave a like. If you did not like it, leave a dislike. Leave any suggestions or comments down below. Subscribe if you want to see more videos like this in the future. That is all for now. Keep on learning. Take care.